This is what some poor fellow sent me from Australia. He had gone to Bali, had never been a user of hair dye in his life. They painted him with basically paraphenylene diamine, and that's what happened. And the man didn't get how dangerous this was. He was actually rather proud of his scars. He felt they looked manly. And he said, well, this would only be a problem if I were a woman. Paraphenylene diamine was part of a group of coal tar-derived dyes that were invented in about 1880 when they began synthesizing dyes. Before then, there were plant-based dyes like indigo, walnut dyes. If you're interested in textiles, you'll know that once upon a time there was a huge range of dyes. They were all based on plants. Not many of them are useful on skin. To get them to stain most things, you have to simmer them, like put your yarn into the dye bath and simmer it, or add a mordant or other things. It's very unusual to have a molecule that's so small that it will go into the skin and stain the skin unless you drop yourself into a boiling dye pot, and most people don't do that. It's possible that Oscar Wilde was one of the first people who became allergic to coal tar dyes. It was used in the fur industry to dye hair. People tried using it on their human hair, not realizing that this was a very, very dangerous substance. He was vain enough to try to get rid of his gray hair, and fairly early on after that he had skin problems, skin rashes, irritations. I can't go back and dig him up and prove that that's the problem, but someone did write a paper suggesting that he was one of the earliest sufferers of paraphenylene diamine problems. In 1936, there had been so many serious problems come up from people mixing up their own hair dye based on the leather industry and the fur industry that the FDA cut a deal with hair dye companies saying you can no longer use paraphenylene diamines in your hair dye in amounts above 6%, and if you promise to do this, you're immune from prosecution and you don't have to tell people that there are dangers. Now, this is 1936. Health warnings on products really didn't exist. And they had no idea of the long-term effects. By the 1960s, the American Cancer Society was putting out papers saying there is a strong correlation between hair dye, particularly black hair dye, and cancer and other problems. Now, they knew that there were serious problems with allergic reactions, but the hair dye companies mostly said, oh, well, you have sensitive skin. Now, in the English language, the word sensitive means emotional and caring and so dainty and feminine. They kind of missed that one, that no, it's a chemical and your body is reacting to it and becoming allergic to it. So why did this jump up in the 1990s, late 1990s? Why did people start painting skin with high dye content paraphenylene diamine black dye? Well, across the globe, young people wanted images of tribal, bold, glorious tattoos because they rather resisted the shirt and tie world of globalization. They wanted to reclaim some mythic past and resist modern blandness. So instead of committing themselves to a needle tattoo, and the tribal needle tattoos take a lot of work, a lot of time, and most people wanted the balls without the commitment. So National Geographic and tattoo magazines and other resources showed particularly Polynesian, Maori tattoos, and people thought, wow, look at that wild, free, bold existence. I want a piece of that. So when people went out to start getting temporary body art, they wanted it to look black. They didn't know that there was any other way for something to look. They didn't care for the brown. And when Henna made the jump to the US, most people had absolutely no idea how to do it and were getting very poor results. Poor result after poor result after poor result. They went looking for another way to do it. The secret got out that if you mix black hair dye of a particular sort, you can paint the skin and you can emulate the tribal tattoo results. Online sales in particular are absolutely unregulatable and are absolutely unregulated. One of the biggest sellers of paraphenylene-diamine black henna, I'll skip the name, I don't need another lawsuit thread. Anyway, he was mixing it in North Carolina, basically mixing it up in the basement, buying the paraphenylene-diamine, mixing it into a gel, selling it on the internet. I sent Fox newsmen to his basement to investigate. And he knew there was a problem. He didn't care. He was making money. Okay, at this point, he has moved offshore into the West Indies. I don't remember if it's Bahama or what, but what you call smurfing it back into the States, one package at a time. However many the FDA might seize, it's still getting through and it's still out there. Can you force him to have on his website to stop lying? No, you whack him off one server, he goes by space on another server, back he's up with the same lie again. In 1999, we had the first Henna conference. I hosted it. It was the Brushwood Folklore Center. And from about 1997 was the first time I heard of an injury from paraphenylene-diamine. They were coming in pretty regularly from Venice Beach, where people were buying the hair dye, putting it on. Another lawsuit went down in Columbus, Ohio, from a hairdresser who knew that you could pack the skin with black hair dye and get a stain. And it was on a model, and the model now has a big scar there. So we were having a lot of problems with the medical community having no freaking idea what they were looking at. The medical community knew there were allergic reactions to hair dye. They didn't know that hair dye was being marketed and being called henna. So that was the hitch. It was a big disconnect. And we stood around at the studio at the campground and said, gosh, something needs done. Yeah, something needs done. Something really needs done. And I thought, all right, I'll do it. So I put up the first web page that had information on black henna. Because I was teaching at the university, I was able to get into all of the medical papers that had been published and have a paper with citations and photographs saying, here's what's happening, here's the chemical, here's why it's causing this. So the information initially started going out, and within 2 years I saw the medical papers turn around, because their first search, when they first started to write a paper on the injury, went straight to my page. And they looked at it and said, oh, okay, paraphenylene-diamine, that's doing that, I understand. I never got a citation, but I would see whole sentences, phrases, and paragraphs that I wrote turn up in their medical papers. It was about that time that I realized I have to go to grad school and get the PhD, because if I say this as a PhD, they'll take it seriously and give it a citation. So long as I don't have those letters, no one's going to take what I'm saying seriously, or they at least aren't going to cite me. When I got a hold of Henna Page 2003, I expanded the article, redid the bibliography, got a couple more lawsuit threats. No, you're just trying to ruin my business because you're so jealous of my success. No, you're hurting children. That pisses me off.